Welcome back to Call Manager Troubleshooting, Security Issues Part 2. Well, I'm going to pick up in this one right where we left off in Part 1, which was right after this first bullet right here on how to secure voice over IP, a review. Now, I think it's good to spend a nugget reviewing how that security works for voice over IP because I think just about anybody can do voice over IP security. It's not that hard. As a matter of fact, I'm going to start off this nugget with how to enroll a Cisco IP phone using the CAPF function. There's not too much to it. But to really understand how that works and to be able to say, oh, well, I know how that works and I know what it's doing when we deploy these. It's not just selecting options and then saying, okay, we must be secure now. I think that's really a valuable thing to say that you know that so that when it comes to troubleshooting, you can say, oh, okay, well, it makes sense. This guy doesn't have a certificate or whatever the case may be. So let's start off with how to enroll a Cisco phone using CAPF, which is pretty quick, and then we'll go through the various areas of troubleshooting for the CAPF process. Well, as we get started, let's talk about how we would configure our call manager cluster for secure voice. There's not too much to it, as I mentioned. It's just 3 big steps. First off, activate the security services. So we would fly into our call manager. Let's bring him into the picture. And hit the... Oh, we're going to the serviceability side. That's where our service activation is at. And I'll go to the Tools, Service Activation. There's 2 big services that you would want to activate on at least one server in the cluster, and then one on everything else. You can see I've got my Call Manager services, CTI, that's Computer Telephony Integration, Call Detail Records, and so on, so on, so on. Down here, Security Services. These are the 2 services. First off, you have the CTL provider. That's the Certificate Trust List. Every server, every call manager server that the phone is going to use in this cluster needs to have that activated because that is what allows the server to generate that self-signed certificate I talked about in the previous nugget that says here's my public key, this is who I am, this is who has approved me, which would be itself, and add that certificate to the trust list. So it would say I am now available as a trusted server in the cluster. The second one should only be activated on one server in your cluster. And that is the Cisco Certificate Authority Proxy function, or that's the CAPF service. That is the one that issues those LSC, the Local Significant Certificate, to each one of the phones and allows them to use that certificate now for secure communication throughout the cluster. So those are your 2 services that, check, you got them activated. Second thing is now to install the CTL client and activate security. Now the CTL client, and this is one of the steps that I won't be able to do fully, because the CTL client is the one who generates that trust list. What happens is Cisco ships you this little software client. It actually comes on. Let me show it to you first. Right there. Shoot back over to the administration, and we'll hit the application and go to plugins, which is just the land of cool tools that nobody knows about. And inside of there, I think it's even the first one in the list in Call Manager 6. It is the Cisco CTL client right here. You can see it. This plugin retrieves the CTL file from the TFTP server, digitally signs it by using a security token, and then updates the file on the TFTP server. So this makes the CTL trust list, and let me just review a little bit of that process, available for the phones on the TFTP server. So use this little client, which will be represented by a happy face. He generates this little certificate file, the certificate trust list that says this is trusted, this is trusted, this is trusted. The phones, when they contact the TFTP server, download that file to themselves and say, okay, these are the servers that I will trust. And at that point, they start using their publisher and subscriber and so on. And if some other server, we'll call it the rogue server over here, call manager server that somebody brought up in it could be a VMware machine, tries to take over and I guess spoof and says, oh, I'm your server now, send all your signaling to me. The phone will say, hey, you're not on my list. You're not on the certificate trust list given to me by my trusted TFTP server. So no, I will not accept you and you are a rejected server. So this client is the one that takes all the certificates from these servers and puts them into that certificate trust list. And again, those certificates are generated by that CTL provider service. Now the reason I'm not going to install that is because it does use and require a security token from Cisco. See, this is where that CTL client is kind of a pain, but becomes even more secure. If you could install that CTL client and generate your own certificate trust lists all the time, then you run the risk of people starting to generate rogue trust lists, and saying, oh, well, I've got my own trust list on this TFTP server, and it's seen as just as valid as every other trust list out there. So what Cisco said is, we will sell. Sell. It's not expensive. It's just something you have to get from them, and they have to approve it for you. We will sell these security tokens. And what it is it ships on a little USB key. That, of course, I have to draw. Security token from Cisco. You receive this USB key in the mail. You plug that into the back of your server that's going to be doing this generation, or whatever you install the CTL client on. And let me back up. You don't usually install that on a server. The older versions worked on Windows 2000 and Windows XP. If you try and install it on Vista, it goes, no, I don't like Vista. The newer ones that come with Call Manager 6 will install on Vista. I mean, I could show it to you. You just hit download. It says, what would you like to open this? Comes up and says, after it scans for viruses, which is a extensive process, it'll say, this is now available for you. Wow, okay, there it goes. I was going to say, I don't think it's ever taken that long. And it's a basic install. You just next, and install the CTL client. It's really a next point. But once you get to the point of activating it and running it, it's going to say, please insert your security token now. At which point, it's expecting you to plug in this little USB key in the back of your computer, where it takes the security token from Cisco and signs that certificate trust list with it, essentially saying this certificate trust list is valid. It is from, it's signed by essentially Cisco's public key. It actually, signs it using that, and validates that certificate for you. Now, where this becomes a pain is if you ever add any servers, or change any servers, or replace a server, or whatever the case may be, in your cluster, you need to regenerate the certificate trust list, at which point you need another token from Cisco. So they typically send these things to you in packs of 2, to where you've got 2 security tokens, one to initially create it, and then 1 for any changes. Because, I mean, imagine how detrimental it would be. A major server failure happens, and you replace the server, and then you go, oh, I don't have a security token, so none of your phones will accept that server until you get one shipped off from Cisco. So because of that, if you are using security in your cluster, Cisco's always going to say, hey, keep one of these on hand. Keep a spare in case you have to regenerate it, because once you use that security token, it's kind of like, it's used, throw it away. You can't use it to generate anymore. So you keep buying those and getting those in from Cisco. So, step 1, turn on the security services. Step 2, install that little CTL client and activate the security, and that generates the trust list that's on the TFTP server. And then step 3 is to configure the IP phones for security. Let me show you that. In the Call Manager administration, hit the device menu, and you can do this using the bulk administration tool. It's not something you have to do phone by phone. But we could go to a phone. I'll just use this 7960 first in the list. And when you scroll down on the right-hand side of the window, you can see right here, CAPF information. Right here we have certificate operation, no pending operation, meaning you haven't done anything, you haven't turned on security. But this is where you have the option to say, what do you want to do? Do you want to install, upgrade, delete certificates, or troubleshoot some phone issues that are happening with the CAPF? So if you want to activate security in your cluster, you go to install/upgrade, and it's going to say, okay, how do you want to authenticate these phones in the cluster? And here are your options. You have by authentication string, by a null string, or by existing certificate using LSCs, or existing certificate using MICs. Now let's talk about those. If you are a security junkie and you're like, hey, yeah, hey, I don't know what security junkies say, but they would say something very secure. And they would say, I want to make sure that every single phone in my organization, I have to go to that phone and I have to type in a string. You would choose by authentication string and either type it in here or just hit generate string. So what this means is I would say, okay, my string for this 7960 is 320-647-8535. So now you go to this 7960, you go find it in your organization, you go to the settings menu, go to the security and hit enroll, saying I want to enroll this phone, and then it's going to say what's your authentication string, and you type in 320-647-8535 and hit enter. It validates that that string matches what's on the server and then installs the locally significant certificate. Remember, if you need some review on this, you might hit that last nugget. The LSC is the one that you want. That is the one that is installed by the CAPF, generated for this phone, that says this phone now has a certificate it can use for security. The MIC comes with all the new phones. That's the manufacturing installed certificate. I didn't stutter. I just think management instead of okay, now I'm stuttering. The manufacturing installed certificate comes from Cisco. It can secure you, but they're going to say, hey, you don't want to use that for any length of time because it's a generic certificate. So once you type in that authentication string, it says you're good. But that requires you to go to every single phone, hit the button, and type in a code. Security junkies. The null string is for partial security junkies, meaning by using null, you don't have to type in an authentication string, but you still have to go to the phone and say, okay, phone, enroll. It says successful, it's download certificate. Okay, now you go to that phone, enroll, download, it's kind of like you go phone by phone. Or you can go with the auto setting, if you will, by existing certificate, precedence to LSC or MIC. So I can say I want to enroll these phones automatically, give precedence to the why do I keep thinking management? The manufacturing installed certificate that's on the phone. Or give precedence to the locally significant certificate, the one that I'm going to install. So you would hit update on here, and it would generate it, and you can see the operation will complete. Right now it's, what is the date? It is April 9th. So it will say this operation will need to complete by April 19th, by the 12th hour of the day. And, here's 2009. So you'll hit generate. The next time this phone attempts to register, it's going to say, okay, let's try and install a certificate on you and get you secure. Once that happens, you're good to go. Your cluster is now ready for security. So as you can see, there's not too much to enabling security for your cluster. It's three major steps, and there can be more when you turn on security for your gateways and all those kinds of things. But in its basics, it's pretty simple. And the good news is that leaves our troubleshooting fairly simple as well. One of the issues you may encounter is that the phones may report cannot authenticate CTL file to the screen. Now that can be a little misleading because you think, oh, okay, there's something wrong with the CTL file, or something's off with that, in the sense that there's something wrong with the file itself, but it really means there's something wrong with the servers in that file. For example, if there's a server that you're trying to register with that isn't listed in the certificate trust list, it's going to flash this message up. If you are using a server whose IP address has changed since the CTL was generated, it's going to flash this up, saying it essentially is saying I'm looking at the server and I'm looking at my list and something doesn't line up here. So things to check. The CTL file might not contain all the servers in your cluster. You might have moved the IP phone from another cluster, and now you're getting this report because the CTL file is completely off. You might have the server added to the cluster without updating the CTL, and this is where you replaced the server and you forgot. You can imagine how easy it would be to forget that, and now the phones are saying, hey, I don't know who that guy is. Or if you change the server's IP address since the CTL is generated, now you have to regenerate the CTL file or change that server's IP address back. So when it comes to troubleshooting the CAPF service, first and foremost, check your CTL file. Using that CTL client, once it's installed, it allows you to it'll give you these radio buttons when you install that program. Remember the one that requires the security token? It gives you a little radio buttons, and it says, would you like to create a new CTL file for your cluster, or would you like to modify an existing CTL file? I would hit modify, and it'll import the existing CTL file from the TFTP server, and it'll say, okay, here's your servers and their IP addresses that are in here. Take that list and now match it up to what's reality in your cluster. Do you have those same servers? Do they all have the same IP addresses as what's listed in the file? Do a compare and contrast. And if not, you may have to regenerate that file. Also, anytime you do a regeneration, it's going to eat up a security token. So always make sure to order some more. Have some of those on hand. Second is to perform a hard reset on a Cisco IP phone. This is a pretty awesome process. Just because you feel so secret ninja like when doing this thing. You remember I showed you how to erase the network settings just by going to the settings, you hit star star pound star star and then hit the erase button. This is a factory reset of a Cisco IP phone, meaning ditch everything, not just network settings, but everything that's on the phone and go back to the way that you were when you shipped from the factory. So look at this process. You've probably been staring at it so far. You pull the plug, meaning you power off the phone. You hold down the pound symbol as you plug the phone in. The phone will start blinking. You'll actually, the screen will go, well, I've got a 7970. I just did this on next to me. It kind of goes white, black, white, black. It's kind of like I'm in some kind of recovery mode. And this is hilarious. I'm serious on this code. When the phone starts blinking, or it comes to, factory reset screen, different phones do different things. Type in 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 star 0 pound, which is, if you look at a telephone keypad, you're just going left to right on there, and what will happen is the thing will completely blow itself away, reset to factory defaults, and attempt to re-register with the call manager. Now, if that still doesn't work, if it comes back up and is still saying, CTL file issue, and it's one of the only phones in the cluster that's doing it. I mean, if all the phones in the cluster, or a majority of them, are doing it, it's probably something with the CTL file. Got to open it up with the CTL client, regenerate it to match what you really have. But if it's one or two phones, you may just have something whacked. And again, when you're troubleshooting, that's the technical term. It's whacked. It's just like there's no reason for it. Just something is corrupt in the database, and you may have to delete the phone from Call Manager. I would go ahead and do the hard reset again to clear out whatever settings it downloaded and add it with a brand new profile. So now let's look at some other areas of troubleshooting. What about the manual CAPF authentication, where you type in the authentication string at the phone? Well, here's some things to check if that's going wrong. Number one, type this string again. You might have mistyped it, you might have written it down wrong. Compare it to what you've got on the Call Manager. 2, check the string expiration. You remember when I pulled up that phone configuration, it says operation completes by this date. What that means is if you go, use the bulk administration tool and say, okay, generate authentication strings for all 500 of my phones, and it generates all these strings. They're all different. You're going to have to go to those 500 phones by this date, otherwise the string expires and you have to go regenerate that. So check the expiration, make sure it's not expired. Make sure the phone is in the right cluster. Sometimes, since Call Manager is web-based, you could be managing a completely different cluster than the phone's in, and pulling your hair out for the wrong reasons. Verify the phone authentication settings in Call Manager. You pull this page up that I just did. Make sure you're really looking at the right phone. Compare MAC addresses. Make sure you've got the, as I mentioned, authentication string right, date, all of that kind of stuff. And then verify the CAPF service status. Go into the control center, where we've been many times throughout this series, and make sure the CAPF service is started and running at the time you're trying to do this. Another area of troubleshooting in the security realm is when the phone attempts to place a call. You pick up the phone, make a call, and it says LSC validation failed, or LSC certificate invalid, or something to that effect. If that happens, places a check, very similar to some of the other issues that we saw. You might be using a different LSC than what the CAPF issued. Meaning that, and that goes right along with number 4 here, the LSC on the phone is untrusted. It might have been brought in from another cluster. You brought the phone over. It may be that you got a certificate from a lab. That phone might have been in a lab and got it from a different server. Essentially, the server does not have that phone's CAPF certificate. It doesn't know who it is. So you're going to have to reissue the certificate. Best way, again, is to do that factory reset on the phone and then re-register it using whatever certificate you want to send out to it. It could also be that the LSC has expired. The LSC has an expiration date, and you can go to the phone and verify it. You just hit the settings menu, scroll down to the security area. It's got a little security option on there, and then there will be a certificate management area. And underneath that, you can display the certificate on the phone, and you can, right up top, it'll say this certificate is valid through such and such date, or expires on such and such date. If it's past that date, you need to just go into the Call Manager administration and issue a new one, so that the phone can keep on operating. And again, it doesn't have to be a big process to do that. You can just say, next time this phone registers, use the existing LSC on there to re-register and get a new one. You don't have to go to the phone and use the manual authentication string unless you really want to. Last one right here, the server does not have the CAPF certificate, meaning the phone is coming in and it's saying, I don't have a certificate for you. It keeps all of these in the database on record. And the reason that would happen is maybe replication between the servers is not happening correctly, or that server is not in the CTL trust list. It hasn't registered to where it is a trusted device by the phone. All of those issues can cause LSC validation errors. And again, very similar to what we talked about before. If a server isn't in the list or something like that, you may need to regenerate the list. You might want to just do a hard reset, and that's what I would do for most of these. Use that mythical hard reset process of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 star zero pound, which wipes off any existing CAPF certificate on the phone, and then re-register it and get a brand new one. The last area of troubleshooting deals with the security token itself. When you plug that token in, it is password protected. So, here's the problem. No one knows the password. Two things to check. Number one is default password is Cisco123, and that is case sensitive, so capital C right there. So try that one. Give it one effort. Unless you mistyped it. Because the second thing I have to mention is don't keep trying passwords. This token, when you plug it in, will allow you to attempt up to 15 passwords, at which point the token hard locks, meaning it's no longer usable. And that's not a 15 attempts per insert. It's kind of like you plug it in, it's recording every attempt that you try, and if you unplug it and plug it in again, it's not like you get a new 15 attempts at that password. If you go at 15 attempts, it's hard lock, and you can throw that bad boy away and just reorder it. So don't, one of the things that I'm sure you do it too. You get to a website or something where you forget your password. You're like, Cisco, no. Password, no. And you just start going down this list of passwords that you remember from your head. Not too wise on this one because you're using up your 15 attempts. Definitely do some research before you just start banging away at your miscellaneous passwords. Alright, well that clears up our part 2 of troubleshooting security issues in the Call Manager cluster. There's a lot to security concept-wise, but the good news is Cisco's made it pretty straightforward to get it up and running in a Call Manager cluster to make sure all your voice going across the network is completely encrypted, all your signaling is encrypted. It's almost like having a VPN on every single voice call throughout your network. So we saw the 3-step process to enroll a phone using CAPF, which again, to review, is to activate those two services, the CTL provider and CAPF service. You go install that CTL client on a workstation in your cluster, grab the token, USB token from Cisco, plug it in there, and generate a certificate trust list for your TFTP server, and then enroll the phones. Go either manual or automatic registration for all those phones. And then finally, we went through all those troubleshooting issues that you could run into for the CAPF process. Hope this has been informative for you. I'd like to thank you for viewing.